Okay, so some of the interesting things that I've learned over the last few months, I feel are very great little bits of information for our audience to understand when it comes to AI and what they should be thinking about today. One of the things that you had said is there's a big difference between AI that's for everyone and AI that's for you. I think that's an important distinction for people to understand. So, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so great question. The idea is there's a big race, competitive race right now with these large language models, the big tech companies competing, right? I mean, nobody thought Google would be disrupted in the way that it is today, right? And so that means, large language, OpenAI, open source models, Anthropic, these types of models are spending billions and billions of dollars to create great models that you would never be able to do yourself as an organization, right? You can do open source, you can do these things and fine tune these models. But the real race for those companies, they're fighting a race that we shouldn't be in, right? They are fighting against each other. You've got Elon, you got Zuckerberg coming back with an open source model. You have the category leader, OpenAI. You have Anthropic. You have these other models coming together. They're fighting their own market shares. The good news for us is, as developers and even as users, is the costs of intelligence is continually going down, right? Which means everybody will have access to all the intelligence in the world, right?
Yeah.
So how do you stand out in that capacity, right? That's the purpose of a brand, is to differentiate. What is different about your company, you as an individual, as an employee, that's different from everybody else? And that's where I think these technologies are built to scale. In other words, they're for everybody, whereas what we're doing with nectarflow is we're using the large language models paired with company information, right? Retrieving company information that's specific to the brand and specific to the process of which it sits within. And every company has such unique processes and unique people and unique focus. And so you just can't expect technology that's built for everybody to solve your specific business challenges in that way.
That's interesting. And what I think is kind of interesting is that a lot of effort is going into, from what I've seen, going into teaching you how to prompt, versus what you're doing is just creating an agent that essentially does all of that for you, right? That actually speaks to the large language model in a way that you want to be speaking to the large language model. So is that correct? What I'm
the world changed really fast with ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is just a chatbot. It talks to the large language model, OpenAI, depending on that model, whatever it is today. And so that made it easy for us to interact with the large language model. The only thing is we're only interacting at the user level, right? Programmatically, if you're building technology today and you're talking directly to the large language model in code, if things change quickly in code, you have to go back, and now you have technical debt.
Yeah.
And things are moving much, much quicker with AI than it did with building on PC and building on mobile and building on the internet and building on the cloud. And so with these large language models, when you can talk to them programmatically at the system level, at the role level, and at the user level, you can tell it things in context that will improve the responses that you can't get just talking to it like in a chatbot interface. First of all, you have to go there and think about the chatbot interface to think about the prompts and prompt engineering and all that stuff. The better you are at that, the better responses that you're going to get. But what we're doing is we're creating an autonomous and an automated process where these agents, multiple agents constructed for the company processes, can be part of one workflow. You can have 4 different agents in one workflow. right? That doesn't happen in a chatbot experience because you have this thread ID that has memory, and it's like you and I talking. If you're a really good PR person and you know press releases and you can write for that excellence, you may not be the right customer service person, right? You may be different if you're talking to an investor relations person. Like the investor relations person really understands the type of asset manager they're talking to, how they like to see information, and how things need to be organized different from like someone that's trying to get something picked up in the news. And so in one workflow, we can bring different agents to different aspects of the work and do it programmatically in code that takes people out of the process. And now you're actually creating assistance for your employees versus thinking about how to replace the employees. You're giving every employee the value that CEO probably has at the executive level, an assistant, maybe a personal assistant, right?
Yeah.
And you're giving every employee the ability to have that without employing assistants in payroll.
And I actually think about it conversely too, where if I had made and replicated essentially the way that my CEO thinks, I can run what I'm doing by that person too, to make sure that I'm speaking from the filter in the way that they like to speak about our business, about our company. Because how many times does someone assign something to a copywriter, whoever it is, they write something and then they have to run it by their CMO and they're like, no, that's not it. You haven't hit the nail on the head. So to be able to run what I'm doing even past that agent, I think it's like anytime you would think, oh man, I could really use Jennifer right now. I could really use their perspective. You can just add an agent to that. That's really
and
interesting.
That's what makes a great leader, communication. Right? And understanding how the other person needs to hear it for their reasons, not yours. And to your point, I mean, look at the back and forth and the inefficiencies of that, executive level leader needing to approve something and the gap between the way that it's presented. You can train those things.
Yeah.
And you can do it in a way that is custom to the company versus something that's vanilla and everybody else has access to. Because if everybody has, there was a time when Grammarly was great. Because people were bad at spelling, right? And then at some point, like, being good at spelling is no longer like a valuable thing.
Right.
Because everybody has it, right? So now what? So AI is coming for those types of things in the organization. And it's hard to predict, honestly, where things are going to go with that.
Yeah.
But what I can predict is that your brand will have a unique value statement. It'll have a unique stance in the market that it serves. It will want to attract the type of customers that is suitable for that business uniquely. And that's where I would be spending the time. I'd be focused on that versus like what's next and what's the newest thing.
And that was immediately my favorite thing about nectarflow was how custom it is to exactly what you're trying to accomplish. So if I'm a leader in an organization and I'm thinking about where I'm going to add AI into my process or automation or integrations, like what nectarflow does, is I'm evaluating the work that's already happening, exactly how it's actually happening and how many hands touch that work in that workflow on a daily basis, weekly basis. And I could say, I still want Jennifer to handle this, but I really want her to have an assistant to handle this part and this part and this part. So I think the fact that you can kind of see and decide yourself, you're almost handing people the power to be able to decide versus what we're seeing in other products that are being developed. They're just looking at the problem that they already solved for and trying to add AI into that. Where can we add a little bit of AI into this product versus you decide where it adds value.
Great businesses have great governance, right? And, when we hire people, we want certain outcomes. And right now you can deploy these custom agents into the business to create the same outcomes. In fact, some of them can create the entire outcome. But if you can take 70, 80, 90% of the boring work, the redundant work out of the process, and then organize that data in a central database that's not vendor locked in other words, once that's on a database, it can be used in other applications. Great things can happen for the business, which is the ultimate leader's job. Make good business decisions, make the business better. And a lot of times that's just good business. Leading people through that process is hiring the right people, getting them trained effectively so they can show up better for the customer. And we can do that with agents. We can do that with technology. The fascinating part here, though, is you've heard before, like, inspect what you expect. So great leadership would check on work. It's like the trust but verify. You can do that. You don't have to do that. You can create an agent to do that, actually, to check, right? So now you're checking what's already been checked, but there's still humans. This is all for humans.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, imagine, well, how fun would the world be if it is all for the betterment of humans in business. But imagine what can be unlocked and the differentiation that can be unlocked if people can actually show up and just inspire customers and inspire other leaders and get all this stuff. We'll look back and say, I can't believe we did all this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, being a marketer, I kind of realized that we're kind of the low-hanging fruit. We're the first to kind of dabble. They're already dabbling in copywriting. They're already dabbling in graphic design, video, all of these things. And so I think a lot of marketers are kind of,
You know why? You keyed into something
that I don't even know I keyed into.
If you look at innovation and how markets get reshaped, it starts with marketing, goes to operations, and then goes to financial. And why do you think that is?
I hate to say it this way, but I think sometimes marketing is viewed as fluff and not as impactful to the bottom line or has as much ROI as people realize. So I know at least organizationally, usually marketers are the first to get cut because of that reason alone. And it's not always measurable value.
It's not that they're getting cut. It's that they're farther along than everybody else. They're the smart ones. Marketing is the greatest thing. Everything is marketing. USA, the country is marketing.
Yeah.
Like the flag is brand. Like everything is a brand, right? And story. And to be able to tell a story about what's unique to your business, right? But my point to the marketing, and then it goes to operations and it goes to financial, is that the marketers are just further down the evolution of innovation. So yeah, they're feeling what's next because they've figured out how to get leads and turn traffic into leads so those leads become conversations and those conversations become revenue in the business.
Yeah.
So it's the marketers that realize that. And the reason why is because most business leaders can solve a problem with more revenue. If you can write a check to solve a problem goes away.
Yep.
Well, you need marketers to be able to generate the demand, generate the traffic, generate the leads, and you can solve business problems with money. So now the marketers have done that, and now we're going to operations. And so now, and you think about this. There was a time before you couldn't collect leads online,
Right?
And you could do surveys and all these things. So marketers. Then it went to Dropbox and storage of files in the cloud. So that's operations, right? So they're getting more efficiency. And then it wasn't that long ago when you had to still go to the bank to do checking and deposit checks, and then you could take a picture of it. And now all of those things in between those aspects got disrupted from another new thing, right? So now you can just wire transfer things or Venmo or Zelle and these types of things. So you don't even need to take a picture of the stuff. So anything that's between you and the customer that's not adding value will be disrupted. Okay? And so as soon as the marketers are moved on, it's not that it's coming for their jobs. These are my beliefs. I believe that they're going to make different business value and they'll use these technologies to what? Differentiate, tell the story, understand more insights about the customer with the data. And I'm excited for the marketers, but there will be those that are scared and holding on and, and thinking about things in sort of a fear mindset.
Yeah.
But it's not anything that hasn't already happened
Yeah.
in the world.
And what I will say is, I was a little afraid coming into, before learned what I learned through nectarflow and through learning under you. I'm way more excited after witnessing the capabilities of something like this in making efficient the work I did not want to be doing to begin with. I think now about how much faster can I churn out content when my social posts are automated, when my blogging is automated, but I'm the one that's just prompting it or coming up with the idea to begin with, reviewing it and posting it. How much faster can we get through to that sales process? Can we get through to whatever it is we're trying to accomplish when that part of the work is automated, or at least 90% of the way there, like what you said?
Yeah. And again, I think a lot of people go to speed and they go to information, and people don't want our products and information. They want what's possible, or they want a problem to go away. And so this is where marketing minds get it right, is you have to figure out how to talk about the things that the customers care about, that you want to spend time with. And so if you can't customize your AI for that, then you're going to be creating vanilla things and you're not going to get the results you want. And that's specifically why nectarflow does it that way, is because we need to first know back to like who we want to spend time with, right? And what does a customer like that need to understand, need to know in order to move things forward in their business, right? Your product and your solution just becomes the tool and the technology to help them solve the business problem. But nobody wakes up wanting more information. Nobody wants to know about a company's smart home technology. At the end of the day, that's what I see people do wrong, is they go to ChatGPT and they just write about the things they have. Here's what we have, and here's what it does, and here's what it can do. And it's like just right over their head. You've got to be a marketer and use custom agents, retrieval of custom information that understands your customer and draws people in. And if you just use ChatGPT for that, you're going to get vanilla responses, right? And any good movie, people leave the movie because people were able to make an emotional connection, right? And a logical one to, substantiate certain decisions and movements. But it's story, and having that ability to control the story, I think, is where it matters.
Yeah. And that's the future of marketing and marketers, and what they need to be thinking about is how am I placing us, how am I placing us in a marketplace, and what is the story I'm telling you here that is actually going to draw the attention, so that by the time someone gets into a sales demonstration, they're already sold, right? They're on the concept. They've already bought in. It's the same as anything with training. You're not going to listen to a training that you don't feel like you need to understand to achieve what you're trying to achieve in your career and your goals and your job,
Right.
So, but if you're bought in, you'll pay thousands of dollars to get a degree on something if you feel like that's what you need.
That's why I love premium products. The price that you charge, the higher it is, the better it is for the customer.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Right? I mean, people appreciate nice things.
Yeah.
And so they appreciate people that are leaders in the world doing good things. They appreciate perspective on those things, and they can kind of sniff through your intention, And so when you do things, the closer we can get to what's unique to us, allows that to be an alignment and not a conflict of like, I'm just trying to move something forward or sell something here.
Yeah. And I think it's brilliant, because I think that what's great about something like nectarflow is you're just handing someone options. You're handing someone power, and you're handing them the ability to customize. And that's ultimately what people want at the end of the day.
Yeah, the big shift is most people have been trained to buy technology that was built for everyone. And some of the problems in your business, nobody will ever build a product for. It won't be venture backed. It's not big enough market. It's not a productized thing. It can't scale. And so as a CEO and a leader, I'm looking at those things as found money inside an organization where I can maybe eliminate a role and repurpose that person into something more productive, like revenue. And a software like nectarflow is not an expense because it's going to return you money. So now we've moved in the way that we go into client meetings or prospective client meetings is this is a top line technology.
Yeah.
And we like that because anything is possible. So where do you want to start, right?
Yeah. It's almost hard to wrap your head around at first, for sure. What made you want to develop nectarflow?
Well, that's a good question. Number one, I've for 10 years have used these things, technology, integrations, applications in a modern way. And I've seen the impact and the scalability it's allowed us to do in our business. It's allowed us to win markets. It's allowed us to do that without hiring people in many cases, which means a business can be built differently than it used to be built. Like you don't need as many people to do the work that you once did. And so ours was out of necessity. And then the challenge that we had experienced was, there was lots of technology platforms all over the place, not talking to each other. And then once we pulled it all together, from sequencing to tagging to knowing audiences, we started to really see the growth financially and impact with our brands and the people that were interacting with it. So for us, we saw the results. Then we started, people would come to us and say, hey, can you help us introduce these products to the world and the industry and talk about these things? And so we spent a couple years building other people's brands using this technology. Right? And so then it became like, well, wait a minute. This could be actually more useful to others. So we started listening to the problems and the gaps and the needs that were in the marketplace. And we did research, right? So we're thoughtful about this. And we researched probably a little over 1.6 million units around the problem of integrations. And we learned a lot from that, and we thought that there was a lot of tension and problematic issues with how quickly innovation will flow in an industry if that problem wasn't solved. We were sitting in between everybody in the industry, where we weren't influenced by others that would allow us to not do the right thing for an industry. And so we felt uniquely positioned to bring and solve the problem with integrations for the industry. And in doing that, I realized that wasn't even really the big problem we wanted to solve. We realized that the companies do a lot of things outside of the property management system that is unaccounted for or inefficient. And a property management system can't go those places. So we looked bigger about this in terms of an app store. If you bring AI and automation and data together, really interesting things can happen. And so just going through that process at each stage, just writing the check to pay the developers, to align with the right people, strategically getting all those things in order to think not like a point solution, but a platform that's going to reinvent or reshape or reimagine and demonstrate that a lot of the change that we complain about not happening is because there's not been a thing to step into. So, for example, there was a time when people were worried about, am I going to do PC or Mac? And there was a fight. Which one are you on, PC or Mac? And Steve Jobs came along and said, do we really have more time for another screen in our life? And that was the opening question when he launched the iPad. And so he decided to not compete with the PC or the Mac or the Apple at the time, right? And so he got people to think totally different about something. And he focused on the iPad, which was in the middle of the PC, right? The two PCs. So they weren't even competing. They created a whole new category. So most of the problems that we have today, there's never been the category that's been created for people to step into something to solve it. So we've created that. And that is nectarflow. It's a platform that can bring AI and automation. It can connect to anything with an API. So knowing that, what's really possible with the business? So when Steve Jobs, in 2001, I think it was, when he did this, launched the iPad, he had no idea that somebody someday would be flipping that screen and saying, do you want to tip me on this thing? He had no idea it would be a point solution or a cash register at merchant stores, or I carry an iPad around here and I can control the screen on here and the sound in the room. He didn't even have the vision for that. It was the developers that built on the platform that created that opportunity. So nectarflow is what happens over the next 15 years can be built on that. I'm so excited because who knows? It's not what we build. It's how do we bring these point solution products together and allow real estate companies to build on a platform that they can change the way the data flows, move it to the places it needs to be, and do it in a way that's standardized and authenticated to the standards that the property management systems need and the point solutions need. And ultimately, guess who wins? The resident.
Yeah.
Because you have more ways to create value and unlock innovation in a business and an industry, and you don't have to depend on one source of income, which is the rent increase. And so that's why we're doing this, and we're bold about it. I think we went with some really smart people to get behind to make sure it gets done right. That's sort of my long story approach to how we got here. But I can't be more excited because it's with AI, it's forcing people to collaborate. And the industry hasn't collaborated very well. Mm-hmm. So now there's a tool for them to collaborate and to get the most out of the things that they want to do for their customers and for their reasons.
And I think for the person, what's really interesting is it's actually forcing you to determine which parts of your job you don't love doing. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, if you could look at a positive of what's happening instead of the fear, I think it's really compelling and amazing, really, when you think about, these things I complain about on a daily basis that I don't like doing anyway, I can now just have an agent for that.
Yeah, that's true. And I'm a baseball guy, so until someone there's been a pitching machine forever. Okay, so that's automation. It's been around forever, and we would practice with pitching machines just to save arms, so $1 million arms don't get tired, right? But if you look at a baseball game before the game, there's still a simulation of a real batting coach throwing batting practice. Mm-hmm. Okay, so watch baseball. When they put the mound out there and there's an automated machine throwing BP to professional sports enterprises, then that's when the robots come and all that stuff. But the reality is, just because it can be automated doesn't mean it should. And that's where I think this whole conversation around people and how many and all that stuff, they're necessary. Mm-hmm. The real thing that leaders can do is help move people through change, because this is change that they didn't invite in some cases, that they're not experienced in moving people through. And so that can create a lot of unrest, a lot of uncertainties. So if you can be a source of certainty for a group, if you're an employee, you want to help people move through these things, provide that psychological safety during a state of transformation. I mean, that's what we're doing at our Innovation Summit in December, is helping people move through that. Because it's not the tech and the AI and all that stuff is here. It's that technology can be programmed, right? It moves faster than us. Companies move slower because people are involved. Status quo, mindsets, our minds are filtering machines. They don't, we see the world through the world that we grew up in, and that may not be the world that we're stepping into. So leaders can truly know, like, there are parts of the business that should be automated. It's helping people to do what's next after you've taken away all the crap. Mm-hmm. What's next? Well, how about take care of yourself? How about go do yoga? How about work out? Movement is medicine. How about go to a conference that isn't even in the industry? Get inspired about something that allows you to think differently and come to your organization and create value. Mm-hmm. And so we have to really expand where we find our solutions, where those solutions come from, who they come from, and realize, like, whatever got us here it's not what's going to move us through what happens next.
And I think what's an interesting message for leaders is making no choice is still making a choice.
This is true.
And that kind of came to me the other day because I was thinking about all these people who we're succeeding the way we are today. Well, guess what? Your people are still playing with all of this. Your people, don't let your people, let your people dabble and play. But if you're not understanding what's happening at this level, if you're not leading that charge, I tell this story. I was at an organization, and what they did was they got us all in a room and they said, what AI tools are you guys using? I'm mandated to write a survey to survey my group on what we're using. And that's not to say that that's a bad thing, that they were curious. But if I were a leader, I would want to be saying, hey guys, we have this incredible opportunity in front of us. Let's talk about what parts of your role you don't like doing, and let's figure out a way to utilize this great tool that's coming our way, right?
Sure.
So
Yeah, I look at products people use like automobiles, travel. People can relate to other things that have changed in our life, but then we get to multifamily operations, and it's because we've been so successful. Why is it? There's not enough pain, necessity. So great job creating success. Automotive industry created a lot of success, and they're chasing Tesla forever. The music industry, you see what streaming has done to business models that have the brand of Hollywood. Silicon Valley's, it's going through its own. You're seeing other sort of tech centers and tech. Here in Phoenix, it's Silicon Desert or Silicon Slopes or things that challenge the status quo are important. But at the same time, there needs to be empathy and appreciation to listen, I know why it feels safer to stay where we are is because you may have a presupposition about something else that you went out on a limb for and it didn't go well. And that we bring that bias to conversations. We bring that bias to decisions, and it shapes the way we move forward. And so if you can be just a character that tests the assumptions, I was told this by my advisor, who, by the way, incredible human being that transformed Microsoft, right? So pretty good advice is what's observed and what's interpreted. Are you observing something or are you interpreting it, right? And so as you move through these opportunities that come to us, employees oftentimes feel like it's more risk than they want to take on. They're hired to take care of a department, take care of things. So why would I put my job at risk to do this thing? Well, it may be the riskiest thing. You may not have the job because your company doesn't win. Nobody wins. Right? And so you look at other things like the automotive industry, or even what Airbnb did to hospitality, is they became the largest hotel in the world without owning real estate, without getting JV deals, without buying land, without buying other companies. They did that differently, right? And there are some smart people in hospitality with big buildings and big brands that you and I know.
Yeah.
And they all missed it. So it's very rare that successful industry insiders see the big picture like that because they're so good.
Yeah.
They're so successful. And, depending on how old they are too, do they want to take the risk at this stage and wherever they are and all that? There's so many factors that play out.
Yeah.
But gosh, if you're a leader and you recognize these things and you look at other industries that have been through what we're going through, it's really about just being the leader that moves people through change.
Yeah. And there are ways you can do that aren't as risky. You don't have to roll something out portfolio wide. You can test, you can play. Just be curious, really, is what it comes down to, right? Just be curious and learn, and don't be afraid to learn,
Yeah.
You still have the power, you still have the control, but just be open.
Yeah, we talked about that on the council meeting today. That was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I think it's really smart. Well, I'm excited. And like I said, as a marketer, I was a little more afraid, but after seeing it,
Are you a marketer?
Yeah. Now I'm a lot of things. Yeah, now I'm a lot of things. But in a technical stance, my past history, we all have a lens that we see things through. So I would say, but having viewed myself that way previously, I am now excited about the opportunities of what I can now become too. That's kind of
That's
where
what you
my head is
are.
out.
You already are at everything because you're you. And that's the point, is like when we get this other stuff out of the way, we just get to be us. And we call ourselves asset managers or property managers, or there are people training people in and designating people on jobs that will not exist in some cases, or skills that are no longer required for humans to do. So I mean, how people find their own significance and value, I think, is going to change. There will need to be leadership through that process. But if you think about it, as I mentioned about all these large language models, collecting all the intelligence around the world, what do we really want to be known for? We don't want to be known for being an analyst. Like, we want to be known for, I was able to make an impact, and this business went from this, and it did that, and the people I did it with trusted us, and they felt good about it, and gosh, we made things healthy, right? And that I think is the special part that is playing out here that people don't notice, and so it'll be interesting to watch.
I think it'll be really interesting to watch individuals find themselves again, essentially, and what matters to them and what they really want to be doing.
Yeah,
it's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. What do they teach you in the theater stuff that you did? Like, how do you get people to applause, and like how do you own the stage and move people? You're selling an experience, and it's so subjective, and it's interpreted in so many ways.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's got to be a skill set that's completely powerful.
I've used that every day of my life. What I learned being, you hear of so many people that came from the world of theater that are just so intelligent. And what we had to learn about being articulate and making people feel something. And to your point about brand is that, and what I was saying earlier, sometimes it's viewed as fluff, as not necessary. When people think of a brand, they think of my colors are this, my hex is this. It's like, no, brand is really who are you as a company? What space do you own? And in my opinion, it's the most important thing you can possibly have as a company. Because when we're talking about differentiators, when everybody has the same thing, or if your brand were the same as everybody else, you wouldn't sell a dime. You wouldn't sell a single thing, So I think it's interesting. I'm still in the exploratory phase now of, wow, if I automate all of this, what's next?
Yeah.
Really.
Well, anything.
Anything.
Yeah.
It kind of blows your mind a little.
We haven't been at this very long, so and it's exciting. But to your point, brand's a very hard thing for people to understand and articulate. But it's the reason why, when even when we do things, it's a decision-making mechanism too. Like, what goes into product, what goes into messaging, what we say no to. What we protect, and it's just good business.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for nectarflow. I'm excited to see how this all plays out. And you know what? When we did our webinar and we did our poll, most people were excited. When we asked them if they were excited or scared.
Right.
I would say majority.
And normally I wouldn't have asked, are you scared, right? But we put it out there.
But people, we just wanted to know, where's your
Well, you know what else
state?
could be there? There could be false intel. Could be like, I'm scared to say I'm scared. But
Maybe. I mean, but it was anonymous. And there were enough
right.
people in the room that, I feel like a lot of people, maybe not the owners of said business where people are excited to try AI, but that's where what we're saying, like, be the people who are leading the charge so that your people are excited. They're ready to try, to dabble, to dip a toe in.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'll tell you, the owners are very excited. You know why? Because they have to be. Because regulations coming in, operational costs are out of control. It's hard to find talent. It's hard to do so many things in the business with limited capacities. In some cases, there's fraud happening. In some cases, once you're selling the product and you can't even have access to the product, and there's regulation on collecting your money. It's just really hard, and then you got supply demand fundamentals that are really out of your control, right? And markets, and you're taking the same amount of risk, right? And so the owners, it's no longer like we want to change the world. It's like necessity.
Yeah.
The challenge with that, especially if you're building a product today and trying to sell it into multifamily, is, you may not be talking to the owner. You may be talking to someone who has to do more work or think about another thing or try another thing. And sometimes what I tell people to do is it's your job, your fiduciary responsibility to know, I need to take the vendor call, answer that question, take the demo, whatever. It's your job to know these things.
Right.
And the reason why is because you need to help get that investor to their yield or protect it. And if there's a technology or if there's an opportunity to do something that allows the employees to get better, the investors to get better, the residents to get better, and you dismiss it, then are you a professional?
Yeah.
Right. So I think you got to challenge the status quo of like, listen, it's no longer someone took me to steak dinner and all this crap. I mean, it used to be the vendors, the owner operators had all the power, and it was like, the buyers are loud, the sellers are quiet. Right. So and now what's happening is technology shifted, and it's the other way around. Where the owner and operators actually depend and need the point solutions, the vendors more, because that's where the innovation's happening, right? So it's a pendulum swing, and so now, if I'm a multifamily asset manager, or an owner and operator, or a third party manager, you got to start checking in on your fiduciary responsibility. I have something that could materially impact our investors, our LPs, our JV partners' yield, and their ability to protect risk. I need to be professional in this process, right? And I think a lot of people are just like, could be timid and scared in many cases, and they may not even pursue that as like, this is my job.
Right.
It's your job to know things about how the business works. And if there's an opportunity that the business is going to change and you don't know what's happening, they're going to choose another management company.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So for all the vendors out there, I'm rooting for you, right? And if you send us your documentation, we'll bring them customers.
Yeah.
Because what we believe is when we all work together, not only the industry has to succeed, right? Before markets succeed and before companies succeed. And that's why Elon Musk gave away the patents to electric vehicles, is he was smart enough to think bigger and get away from sales and say, I need this category to succeed before Tesla succeeds.
Wow. That is just wild. That's like a mic drop moment right there.
It's true, though.
It is.
And it's already happened. I'm not making it. This is facts.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. We all are hitting the same hurdles. And we talk about this in the Innovation Council meetings. We all are hitting the same walls.
Yep.
It's time for us to bind together for innovation.
Yep.
I like it. Well, on that note, where can people find out about nectarflow?
Nectarflow.com is a great spot. And, I think it's an opportunity to just get in touch with us. I think what we do and what we're doing right now, hopefully it provides value to people. They think a little different about their business. And if you go through our marketing or you go into a demo, sometimes you don't even have to buy something. Just when you get, it's a process of starting. I think it's taking the first step is probably the hardest step.
Yeah.
That's nectarflow.com.
Yeah. Just be curious.
Yep.
We'll leave it at that.
Yep.
All right.